to talk fantasy football with an expert, have him come into the show right here. And so one of the first things I want to do is talk today without having an expert in there. I'm going to have myself in and talk about fantasy football value at the wide receiver position. I'm going to rank the wide receivers and explain why. So typically you're able to go through and, check these sheets. But I'm going to go ahead and give you guys my cheat sheet and share what I'm thinking, man, because at the end of the day, receivers are a tough position, but it's also deep. You got to know who to draft, who not to draft. And so here we go. I've actually got these in tiers, so you can see the tiers, and this is a fluid list, so I might even change some right here on the show. But this list right here, Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson are the elite of the elite. I think Cooper Kupp by far is the wide receiver one that you want to have. Justin Jefferson, close two though. Like he's a close two. It's not like it's this big thing where I got Justin Jefferson so far behind Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp is just more elite. He had 100 points more than Justin Jefferson last year. I think the floor is safer. The connection is there, and he has the better quarterback. So when I look at Stafford versus Kirk Cousins, the upside is just so much higher with Stafford. I think if they were like to switch roles and Justin Jefferson was on the Rams, Cooper Kupp was on the Vikings, I would have these guys flip. But the connection is there. Cooper Kupp, Matt Stafford, got to put him at number one. Number two, Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson has to be up there at the number two spot. They have a new coordinator, the Rams' old offense, so they're about to get lit over there. And I can see him having a really big season. He had 1,600 yards last year, so an increase on that doesn't shock me. I can see him having more receptions as well. Now here's where things start to get a little tricky. I got Davante Adams, Stefan Dix, and then Jamar Chase. So to me, when I'm talking about like how do I see Davante Adams? Davante Adams and Derek Carr have this real relationship. Like there's obviously going back to college, they played at Fresno State together. They are going to put together a good season. Now, Derek Carr also force feeds his number one receiver heavily. We saw it with Darren Waller. We've seen it with Hunter Renfrow. Shit, we even saw it with Nelson Aguilar. So just know that that's there, and they have that potential. So I'm not really worried about Davante Adams. I can see him being a true threat in Josh McDaniels' offense too. Like I can just see big things out of Derek Carr and Davante Adams. So he's my number three. Number four is Stefan Dix, who's finished as the wide receiver 3 and wide receiver 7, respectively. Last year was considered a down year for Stefan Diggs, and he still produced wide receiver number 7 numbers. So to me, Stefan Diggs has a locked-in role with Josh Allen. Bye to Emmanuel Sanders, bye to Cole Beasley. So there's even more room for Stefan Diggs to have a really good season. Gabe Davis is there. Isaiah McKenzie's in the slot now. Duke Johnson's in the backfield. And, of course, Dawson Knox is always going to be a playmaker there for him. Jamison Crowder's involved. So there's some other targets away, but I'm still rocking with Diggs on this one. I feel like Diggs is still going to be the go-to guy for this offense. Jamar Chase down there at 5, and now – this is where a lot of people put him at 3 for his season he had last year. I get it. If you want to put him there, that's fine. I just feel like his floor is potentially lower, even though his ceiling is probably higher than Stefan Diggs and Davante Adams. I feel like Jamar Chase's floor is a little bit lower than those two guys. So I got him at 5 right now. And then CeeDee Lamb, I feel like he has next. And so this is a little bit of a precursor move. This is me expecting him to be much better than he was last year with Amari Cooper gone. He's going to have to perform well against top coverage, against double teams. He's going to see it all this year, but he's in his third year, which is when wide receivers typically break out. So for me, I'm looking at CeeDee Lamb. I think he's a huge value down there. And a good old Mike Evans. Like Mike Evans to me, Mike Evans is always going to be a dog, and he's in that offense right now. I had him a little bit higher, had to move him lower because of, the signings. Julio Jones is there now, Kyle Rudolph, Chris Godwin's healthy. Obviously, Russell Gage is a part of the offense, so I wanted to make sure I had him in there. I had him a little bit projected for a little bit higher, but I think the floor is what you're drafting here. 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns seems like a lock. 75 catches. I feel like you can't get any lower than that with Mike Evans. He'll probably lead the league in touchdowns. So I love what Mike Evans brings to the table. I've always been a big Mike Evans guy. This, to me, is the right spot to put him. Now, the next tier, so that's the first tier. Those are the guys I feel like are locked in. The next tier is where I start to get, okay, there's some question marks about their production, their potential, but I feel really good about drafting them as my wide receiver 1 or maybe my wide receiver 2, depending on where they get drafted at. The first one, Deebo Samuel, who is back to his role, now signed with the Niners. I see him having a repeat of last year, maybe a little bit less when it comes to receiving yards and a little bit less when it comes to rushing yards. The Niners were running them like 5 to 8 times every single game over the second half of last year. So if Elijah Mitchell is healthy, Tyrion Davis-Price comes in there, Jeff Wilson's healthy now, I'm not sure they'll have to lean on him as much, but I do think he'll still see about 3 to 5 carries in the rushing game, which is what you want to see. But Deebo Samuel, to me, does have a little bit more downside because Brandon Ayuk should emerge a little bit more this year. George Kittle should be a bigger factor. And I talked about Trey Lance being the quarterback now. So they're still going to get Deebo the rock. He's still going to be highly productive, but he already got the bag. So I'm looking at who's got next. Kittle and Ayuk also are going to bounce back and have really good seasons. I think Trey Lance feeds them. But he's still a tremendous value right there. The number 2 or 3 wide receiver overall last year, going as the wide receiver 9 or 10 in most drafts. So I'll take the value there. Tyreek Hill, very similar, going to a new offense now, and he has all the upsides you want to see. In that offense with Mike McDaniel, he's going to be playing much of the same role that Deebo does. Now, there's a little bit of a limitation because Tua can't throw the same ball as Pat Mahomes. As much as he wants to say it, is just as accurate, or they're similar quarterbacks, they're not. He's saying that to hype his QB up, and he's going to be there. Like, at the end of the day, we're going to see Tyreek Hill be among the top 10 wide receivers. That's just what he does. Unless there's an injury, Tyreek Hill is going to he's got the burners. He can make things happen. Even after a 10-yard catch, he can take it to the house for 80 yards. So I'm not moving Tyreek Hill out of that value. I think he's a top 10 wide receiver for sure. Now, when I look at Keenan Allen is starting to get to that range. If I have a few more questions, like, is the age going to catch up? He's been injury prone before the last 2 seasons. He has really been injury prone. Can he stay on the field? So a lot of people are already assuming Mike Williams is going to take the next step. I'm not. I still think Keenan Allen's one of the top receivers in the league. Justin Herbert, he's finally got the QB that can get him the ball consistently. Even though Rivers did, it's different with Herbert. Like, Herbert is just that dude. So I see Keenan Allen having another big year and another top 12 finish. He just doesn't have like that top 5 receiver potential that some of these other receivers do. Like the next guy, A.J. Brown, right? A.J. Brown is going to be a monster this year. A.J. Brown is no matter what, like, maybe he's not the top 5 upside in fantasy, but the top 5 in real life, A.J. Brown is a dog. And so when I look at A.J. Brown, I think he has the potential to have a really good year. And initially, I was thinking, like, there's no way. Like, he's not going to have that good of a season. He's going to Jalen Hurts, he's going to throw 3,500 yards. Like, he's not going to throw for a ton of yards. So I thought it limited A.J. Brown's upside, especially with Devonta Smith there, Dallas Goedert. And then they lean on the run game too. Miles Sanders, Kenny Gainwell, Boston Scott. So there's a lot of different options there with that team. And so for me, I was thinking, all right, A.J. Brown is good, but is he better than some of those other guys? I see his floor just being a little bit lower, but even on the Titans team, A.J. Brown was a top 10 receiver, so we might be discounting him too much. Give me him at number 11, though. I feel like it's a good spot for him. And then T. Higgins. T. Higgins emerged last year, has really been a productive receiver. He, at times, even looks like the number 1 receiver for the Bengals. So I think he's going to have a really good season. He's starting to go a little higher than I'd put him over. Like, I'm not going to put him over guys like Tyreek Hill, Deebo Samuel. I feel like the fantasy community is starting to realize that he's really a good talent. 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns in 11 games. Like, he had a really productive season. So I think T. Higgins is a really good receiver, starting to get out of my price range, though. So just be careful with T. Higgins. Don't draft him too early. Like, I think back into the second round is probably a little too early, especially if you got guys like Deebo Samuel, Tyreek Hill still on the board. And then DK Metcalf, I'll go through a little bit more here through the second tier, through DK, Michael Pittman, Terry McLaurin, and Diontae Johnson. Just kind of talking through these guys' value because I feel like they all have very good situations, very good talent, but they're missing one of them. They're missing either the volume, they're missing the consistency. So with DK, he's definitely missing the quarterback. Like, DK Metcalf is missing the quarterback when it comes to his value. So I look at DK as, like, you know, you have to be able to execute when there's no quarterback, and he's the kind of receiver that can. Like, we saw him and Geno Smith have a good connection last year, even when Russ was hurt. DK was still putting up numbers. He had a game where he had over 100 yards, had 2 touchdowns, like, with Geno Smith. So I'm not overly concerned about Geno being the quarterback. If it's Drew Lock, there might be a little bit more concern. But even Drew Lock can carry, you know, a wide receiver. So I'm not that concerned about DK Metcalf, who just got the bag himself. So when it comes to DK, he can catch bad balls. He can win contested catches. Like, he's going to produce no matter what. So we saw him have 900 yards last year, which was a little bit low for DK. I expect that number to go way up this season, probably more in the 1,100, 1,200 range with about 10 touchdowns. So I like DK's value there. And a lot of people are fading DK because of the quarterback situation. Don't let that scare you. Different quarterback situation for Michael Pittman, though, who I am really excited about. And his value's been creeping up all summer. It's good to see. But Matt Ryan does like to target one specific receiver, just like we talked about with Derek Carr. Michael Pittman is going to be a dog this year, and Matt Ryan is going to find him. So he's winning right now in training camp. You love to see him battling against Stephon Gilmore. Iron sharpens iron is the phrase. So to me, he has a ton of value here going in like the third and fourth rounds of drafts. He could be a top 10 guy. I'm not sure he gets there this year, but if he did, it would not surprise me at all. So Michael Pittman, he had a wide receiver 17 finish last season with Carson Wentz. I think he does way better than that with Matt Ryan, who will get him a better ball, be more consistent, and get him the targets that he needs. And so T.Y. Hilton's gone from the team. They want to reduce Jonathan Taylor's carries and get Naheem Hines a little bit more involved. I could see the passing game taking a very, very big increase with Matt Ryan. That feels like why they did the deal, to get a little bit more balanced out, get a solid quarterback in there. Give me Michael Pittman all day at that value. Next up is Terry McLaurin, who I think is an elite talent, but now playing with Carson Wentz. And we saw Michael Pittman finish as wide receiver 17 last year. I think that could be a similar finish for Terry McLaurin this season. They also drafted Jahan Dotson. And so to me, he's going to have a little bit more competition for targets. Obviously, Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissick are factors in the passing game. Logan Thomas should be back healthy this year. So they also drafted Diami Brown last year. But McLaurin got the bag too. So they want to make sure that he's getting featured. I'm sure he wants to make sure he's getting featured. And I can see him having a top 17 season as well, just like Michael Pittman did last year. Very similar results for my guy, Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry. And then lastly, Deontay Johnson is the last one I'll talk about for today here in the second tier. You can see the other tier has a lot more question marks with Chris Godwin, Michael Thomas being elite talent, but just questionables with the injuries. And then some other guys who aren't going to get as consistent targets or maybe have upside but huge floors as well. So Deontay Johnson to me is that guy. I'm probably going to end up moving him down into this tier, depending on the quarterback situation, if it's Trubisky or if it's Kenny Pickett or if it's Mason Rudolph. Like, we have no clue what's going on with that quarterback situation in Pittsburgh. So for me, I'm kind of fading those guys right now. Deontay Johnson's a guy I don't want to fade him necessarily because I think he's a good talent, but I am scared of the quarterback situation, and I feel like Chase Claypool, George Pickens can all have a role in this offense as well. So will we see 100 catches from Deontay Johnson? I don't think so. And so without the kind of volume that Ben was giving him last year with 170 targets, it could be a different type of season for Deontay Johnson.